Hi, I'm Barrett Parkman, the co-managing director of the Extreme Tech Challenge. It's great to be back here at TechSparks. I'm disappointed that I can't be with all of you in Bangalore this year like I was last year, but I'm grateful I can still connect with you all here virtually. It's clearer than ever that the world is facing extreme challenges, from COVID-19 that has infected millions globally, to climate change that is causing natural disasters around the world, to deep inequalities that exclude entire populations from opportunities and progress. The Extreme Tech Challenge is founded on the belief that startups are often our best hope to unleash the innovation that is needed to solve these challenges. XTC is dedicated to finding startups that are innovating for good and empowering them with a network of investors, corporations, and mentors to access the resources they need to scale their business and their impact. XTC is a nonprofit organization that is supported by over 40 partners, including Samsung, Your Story, Microsoft, Tech Mahindra, NXP, Hyundai, and Cisco. Over 2,400 startups from 87 countries applied to XTC 2020 that culminated in July. Over 100 global VCs reviewed the applications and selected just 52 finalists. Each of them joined the XTC Bootcamp and received unique access to leaders like Jerry Yang, the co-founder of Yahoo, Tim Draper, the founder of Draper Associates, Young Sun, the CSO of Samsung, and a host of investment leaders from prestigious VC firms and global corporations. These startups have raised over $50 million since becoming XTC finalists, despite the headwinds of a pandemic. In our next session, Ramarko Sengupta of Your Story is going to introduce you to 4 incredible XTC 2020 finalists from India. But before that, here's a little more about XTC. Thank you.
We live in uncertain times, but we also live in times of great hope and opportunity. And some of it is thanks to forward-thinking entrepreneurs who are determined to change the world for the better. And when it comes to changing the world, startups don't necessarily have to choose between profit and purpose. The key is to ensure your impact is positive while also building a successful business. Doing exactly that are the founders of the 4 Extreme Tech Challenge 2020 finalists from India, and we are very proud to be speaking to them. These 4 changemakers are here to tell us how they are building high-growth, commercially successful startups while also solving global challenges. As many of us know, XTC is the world's largest startup competition for entrepreneurs addressing global challenges. The goal of XTC is to connect game-changing innovators with a network of investors, corporations, and mentors to help them raise capital, launch corporate collaborations, and scale their startups. The competition, inspired by the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to shape global development by 2030, is looking for innovators who are working in the following categories. These are ag tech, food and water, clean tech and energy, education, enabling technologies, fintech, healthcare, and lastly, transportation and smart cities. Without further ado, let's meet the 4 founders. We have with us Raoul Nanavati, the CEO of Navana Tech, a startup that provides B2B conversational AI solutions in vernacular languages for the low literate demographic to use smartphones. Next up, we have Kristin Kagetsu, the co-founder and CEO of Saathi, a startup that's providing a sustainable end-to-end solution for sanitary protection to women in India with biodegradable and compostable sanitary pads. Then we have Rajendra Lora, the co-founder and CEO of Freshokartz, a startup that's integrating farms, farmers, vendors, traders, and customers on a common platform to structure the agricultural sector. And finally, Swetabh Pathak, the co-founder of elucidata.io, a startup that uses data science to reduce the time taken to discover life-saving drugs through its AI-enabled platform Poly. I'd like to start with a couple of common questions for the panel. I want to know, based on the kind of work that you do, why do you think there is a strong need for change? Kristin, if we could start with you.
Yeah, in terms of the need for change, only 18% of women in India have access to sanitary pads. And there's also a huge plastic pollution crisis. And because of these two things combined, we wanted to be able to provide a more sustainable solution. So we really wanted to look at how can we contribute to a more sustainable future.
Shweta?
In terms of what we do, it takes about 12 to 15 years and a couple of $1 billion to discover a drug. And clearly the human cost of that is much, much higher. And as unfortunately, these times remind us, the process of finding a drug or a therapy when it's most needed is still way too long. And we believe that being able to look at data in a proper manner, especially molecular data, that's what we focus on, can change that and save a lot of lives. So, it's as pertinent as anything, I guess, today.
Raoul?
This year, 2020, we saw that the number of active mobile data users in rural India actually surpassed the number of urban internet users by about 22 million. So that's 227 million people in rural India who are using mobile data really for the first time ever. And they're all getting onboarded to solutions that have been designed for that urban demographic and often struggle to use those services. And that's why we've built the Bharat SDK to enable businesses to voice-enable their solutions to reach that demographic.
Right. And Rajendra, your thoughts?
We are working in the Indian agriculture sector. So everyone know, like, our agriculture ecosystem is contributing more than 18% to our GDP. But still, like, it's totally unorganized. Still, our farmers are using the same agri practices which they were using from last 15, 20 years. There are no advancement in the technology part which they were using, even what fertilizer they were using. There is less use of technology and data. So we believe that, and if we compare with developing countries, we can see like the yield for the crop, even crop losses are too high in India. So we are just bridging the gap, and we can create impact in farmers' life, can increase their income by providing the technology and database solutions. So we believe like this is a high time that we have to make changes in the sector which is like very important for Indian GDP, even for the country.
Rajan, if I can stay with you for the next question and then go to the other panelists. What were your experiences with XTC and how did it help power your journey?
We attended their sessions, even we attended their virtual boot camp. So we got like very good exposure, and like today in our age, like 15 to 25, 30 age, when we are listening from very senior people, the leaders in this technology ecosystem. It's about like how you can build something, $1 billion company from the scratch, and can create impact on the lives of people.
Raoul, tell us about your experiences and how it's sort of helped your journey.
I think the really amazing thing that surprised me from the XTC experience was the bootcamp sessions. Most of startups in India were focused on our own ecosystem and all of the great people within our ecosystem. But there are very few and far opportunities to actually engage with the international ecosystem, especially at the level that XTC provides access to. So that's that was the big takeaway for me.
Right. And Kristin and Shweta, your experiences, were they any different or pretty much on similar lines?
Yeah, it was along the similar lines. So definitely a lot of great exposure. And we were fortunate to be the healthcare category winner, and also got a shout out from the Tech Mahindra CEO. So that was something we unexpected that we're really thrilled about and honored to receive that feedback.
Shweta,
just to add to that, I think the bootcamp, as everybody has already referred to, was really excellently run. And I think the 4-minute pitch and being able to get that right, and the amount of help that we got, I think through that process, I think was very good. I thought the the boot camp was really excellently run.
Raoul, I want to know that you've carried out qualitative and quantitative research to understand explicit, tacit, and latent needs of our end users. What were the key insights from the research, and how did it shape your product?
The course of 2019, my team and I, we traveled across the country, across 8 states, doing close to about 500 qualitative interviews with recent smartphone and mobile data users. And these users all spoke collectively about 10 languages. And during this deep dive of research, we found 2 pretty interesting insights. The first would be obvious at first glance, is that WhatsApp is ubiquitous when it comes to usage. But just how ubiquitous was really, really interesting for us. You can actually map the journey of growth of digital literacy through the features that a user starts using over a period of time. So we actually noticed that people who were most illiterate, for example, were only consuming content. But as they continue to use their smartphones and use WhatsApp, they would graduate to forwarding that content. And then the next step a few months later would be to actually create their own content and share their content. And then it would be to create a voice note and then, create your own messaging. And then finally, the most sophisticated users in our demographic were actually using speech to text technology to create text messages and send them forward. So that was something that was really interesting for us that we implemented in our product to provide that breadth of feature set, but all at the simplest level so that users, no matter where they stood in terms of their literacy, could use the product. The second really interesting insight that we found was by speaking to users around their usage of YouTube. YouTube actually is the de facto search engine for Bharat. Okay, because the input is voice-based. The way they've structured the voice-based input to search is fantastic. And the key point there is that the result is in video form. So audio visual requires zero literacy to use YouTube and to find content, right? So just that simple insight that came from seeing this pattern, like if people would use even English keywords like sad Hindi song and get the things that they would want, right? And we found other search results like where is the nearest chemist on YouTube. So it pointed to the fact that YouTube was so usable that they said, hey, I'm not going to go to Google because I get text, image, video, and it's all in one place. It's confusing. I'd rather go to one place where the search results I get is something I can actually consume. So those were 2 main kind of insights that we found during our research.
Let's talk about what the landscape is like for the low literate demographic in India, and what do you think is the potential for change there?
If we look at India, there's 287 million people who are technically considered illiterate. And when you look at functional literacy, that number balloons to be quite large. I'm sure everyone here has experienced this moment where they're either sitting in a cab or they're at their office or sometimes even at their home, and someone comes to you with their smartphone and says, hey, can you please book my train ticket for me? Or, hey, I heard about this app. Can you please download it for me? Right? So there is this huge opportunity to deliver or enable the ability of independence and confidence when using digital technologies. And getting them or providing them the tools to do so would unlock such a huge opportunity for what we quote unquote call digital India. There is a 3 to 5 year time horizon for us to really unlock all of that value. So it's a very big opportunity. It's sitting there. We've all seen it and experienced it. And so that's what I feel about that.
Raoul, I'm curious to know, how are you collaborating with players in the industry to improve your product?
We are a conversational AI company, which means we are focused on deep tech. However, a big part of our company is focused on human-centered design as well. So every time we enter a new domain, right now we're focused on BFSI. So the past year was focused on our human-centered designers were focused on spending time on the ground, doing all the research I told you about, to actually create a voice-based chatbot solution that resonates with this demographic. When we move to new domains like healthcare, agriculture, we work with companies. So we've already worked with Wadhwani AI on their healthcare solutions and their agriculture solutions. We work with Digital Green, a fantastic NGO, on their agricultural solutions, which is a farmer ledger application. We engage on these things with these types of organizations on the ground because they know their customers, they have the relationship with their customers, and we can actually engage on solving a big problem while learning and implementing those into our core platform. So that's how we currently engage with people on the ground.
I want to know if there's any other, inspiring success stories, so as to speak, that you want to share with us from your journey.
But I wanted to take the opportunity, since the panel is about quote unquote creating startups that can change the world. I want to take that opportunity to say that, big success for any entrepreneur who's trying to create a socially driven startup, the success is actually sticking to your mission. If your mission is actually to create change, you will find that it is way harder than any traditional business, because you have to keep foregoing much larger profit-driven opportunities in the pursuit of actually creating impact. And that will be the number one challenge that you have. And if you can stick to your mission, that is your success, and stay alive, that is your success.
Very interesting. Staying alive is, of course, the most important thing. Kristin, if I can come to you next, I'd like to know from you, what were the compelling statistics from the ground that led you to innovate biodegradable and compostable sanitary pads?
One of the things was when we started, we were looking at the statistic of only 18% of women having access to sanitary pads. And this was something where we were looking at, okay, what are all the ways that we can provide access and what makes the most sense? And when we did a lot more research into this issue, it wasn't just about providing access. We wanted to provide a high quality product. And so we were looking at, okay, how do we provide this good quality product? And then at the same time, one of the other things that we were discovering at the time of developing our idea was a lot of women were also looking for plastic-free products in the urban market as well, but they couldn't find one. And so we thought, this is something where we're seeing kind of a two-pronged need for the same kind of product. So in a village setting, you would have no designated landfill as such, or kind of waste management system that's sophisticated like in a city, because the need is smaller. So if you don't have the infrastructure for landfill, then all these products are just ending up like around in the community, whether it's in kind of regular piles in the community, or if it's in the water bodies, etc. And so we saw like this was something that could address both at the same time.
Kristin, I'm very curious to know, why do you work with banana fibers? How does banana fiber compare to, say, other natural fibers or the more commonly available synthetic products?
In terms of banana fiber, it's one of the most absorbent natural fibers. And so we were looking at natural fiber that's absorbent, and in addition, it's also a material that's not used normally commercially. So it's something where farmers are taking they have to cut down the banana trees every harvest, and that's every 9 months approximately. And so when they cut down the trees, they just throw the stalk or the stem to the side of the road or to the side of their land. And in that sense, we're able to take this waste from them and be able to upcycle it. So it's kind of a win-win, because one, it's not sitting on land which they could use for farming. Two, we are able to provide additional income for this material as well.
And what, from your experience, can be a successful strategy for scaling up?
In terms of scaling up, first, there's some of the basics, like having the product or service that is addressing a huge need. And if you have that first, that's kind of the foundation for being able to scale up further. We did make the decision to set up our own manufacturing unit. So in that case, there's a pretty set way that you scale up in terms of manufacturing. You have to get more equipment and stuff like that. But it is to have those kind of steps of starting small and then being able to build up, and having a bit of a timeline for the future of where do you see your growth. And so when we set up our factory, we knew we needed to have it so that it would last us a couple of years. So we didn't want to just think for today or this year, but we needed to kind of put that investment in ahead of time so that we didn't have to go after a new factory too soon, because that always requires more investment. So.
The government, social organizations, these are key stakeholders, right? So how does one collaborate with sort of these stakeholders, so as to speak, to bring an idea to life?
In terms of stakeholders, so we talked a lot to women about the product, because just having that feedback early on with our product was very, very important. So we consider them a key stakeholder in terms of how the product features developed and all of that. In terms of key partners, though, we also have been working with a number of corporate partners as well, looking at different opportunities to collaborate. So even kind of on the plastic and carbon credits side of things, this is a new area that people are very interested in now. And so looking at that as an opportunity and really being able to make an impact. So our strength is that the impacts are built into our business model. So as we grow, our impacts are growing as well. And we're addressing 8 of the UN SDGs. And so this is a huge point where we can collaborate well with other corporates.
I'm sure, Kristin, you've come across several inspiring stories, in your journey so far. But is there one that you'd like to share with us here today?
Or many of them are from the women that we've worked or had as our customers. So one of the women had shared a story about how she had kidney stones and she had a surgery, and then after that she was facing a lot of issues with the regular pads. Like she would get infections every time she would use the products, and only when she switched to our product then she was able to she didn't have those infections anymore. And so I think that was something very inspiring in terms of the amount of impact it could, just this product could have on one person. And these kinds of stories, I guess, are the things that drive us going forward.
Absolutely. Rajendra, I want to come to you next. And I'd like to know how you approach partnerships with, governments and NGOs who work closely with farmers, and how do you engage with more FPOs, which is farmer produce organizations?
All the FPOs, so government mechanism for building the FPOs is coming through some agencies. So there are some government appoint some agencies which develop, and these are you can also call NGOs. Currently, we are mostly operating in Rajasthan. So here there are many agencies which are available. Even there are many NGOs. So how this help that? Because when we go to the ground, we find there is some FPO and what challenges they are facing and how we can get more FPOs at one place. So what we do that we contact with these agencies that we just want to work with your FPOs. We have an interesting product. Even we also run centers just like FPOs in our for profit organization side. So this is how we connect with them. And even with when we go to, let's say, NABARD, even government departments. So they also build some small self-help groups. Even these FPOs are also focused on some key problems. So our focus is to go to the government organizations, because in agriculture, if you still the role of government is very big. Even role of FPOs, even role of NGOs is very big. So this is how we have identified set of these organizations. And today's date, we have more than 60 FPOs. They are working closely with us. Even the network of around 60,000 farmers which are working with Freshokartz continuously. And also we have with installation of FPOs, we have around 40 our own centers or physical center which are connected with around 40,000 farmers.
If you could share your key insights from the ground that are shaping your product.
I come from farming background. My parents, everyone, they still do farming. We have a small village in Rajasthan only. So what happens? So I identify problem from there. So that was my key learning, that how farmers are facing problems. And there are so many products available in the market, and they even can't decide which is a genuine product and which is a not genuine product. When we go to these farmers, what we are doing today, what we are doing innovative today, that with learning from, we are collecting all kind of data. We are, like you can say, we are becoming a digital agriculture university today. That whatever product we are selling to these farmers, we are same point of time, we are taking all the data, like where you are using this fertilizer, pesticide or seed, in how much area you are using, have you done the soil testing, how we can provide you better result based on the soil testing. So this all ground level data, which we are collecting through our network of physical centers, which are present at a like village level. So this data is helping us to take intelligent decisions for farmer, government, even the input companies can also use our data and create products and services accordingly.
Thank you for those thoughts. I want to go to Swetabh next. And Swetabh, I want to know from you, how can data science help in research and development of new drug therapies?
There's a lot more data generated than often looked at. And for example, if you're a coder, one of the oldest adages is that code is read a lot more than it is written. And same it is with data. It should be with data. But unfortunately, a lot of scientists spend a lot of time generating data and not being able to do their research on data that has already been generated. And for example, if you look at just the pandemic that we are in, part of the reason why it's not been easy to find a vaccine, and again, it's just only one of the reasons, there are many others as well, but one of the reasons is that you don't have reliable molecular data for all the other corona infections and viruses that have come before. So that's sort of the context in which we see ourselves, is that there is a lot of real world evidence, and especially at the molecular level, which should be available to scientists who are looking for, let's say, a drug for corona, or a therapy for cancer, or anything else. So that's one of the ways in which data and data science can help, because data science can also aggregate and sort of clean data, right? It's not just used for analyzing data, but it can also be used for cleaning data. And that's where that's our sort of angle to it. But of course, I mean, there are a lot of ways in which data can help.
Swetabh, I want to know, how are you simplifying bioinformatics for Bharat? I mean, what kind of strategies are you deploying for that?
At this point, for example, most of the customers that we work with are not in India, right? So in some sense, we are not doing enough. I think in terms of what I think we are doing is of course, we're trying to be part of these initiatives which the government has. For example, I think the government of India has introduced some very progressive ideas around collecting molecular data and collecting other kinds of healthcare data and making it available at a scale which few other countries have to this point, right? For example, the UK has done a great job of that, but India is being very progressive, at least in terms of its policy. And that's a place where we would like to help, I think, if we can. The other place, I think, where we are sort of taking a more Bharat-specific angle is talking about how a lot of the data that is available out there is not really focused on people like us or other populations like what India has and other developing countries has. And for example, what the recent pandemic again has taught us, that the same virus or the same drug works very differently on different populations, right? The fatality rate and so on in India are markedly different from what you're seeing in Europe. It gets done for very different population than people who are let's say in India or in other developing countries in the world. And that's one of the things that we are trying to change. I think again, a very Bharat-specific thing that we're doing is working on diseases like diabetes and specifically diabetes, which is again a huge problem in India. It's an endemic problem, but does not get as much focus elsewhere because we are genetically more predisposed to getting diabetes and other related problems compared to a lot of other populations in the world. And so, for example, one of our recent projects is in that direction. So that's not quite bioinformatics. But that's taking India's specific health problem and trying to do more with that.
I want to know, what are the other opportunities that lie with harnessing the power of biomedical data?
Of course, we're talking about therapies and so on, but just to give an example, and especially we heard Kristin before. She talked about how sanitary pads are being used. For example, we work with a company that is taking data from the sanitary pads, right? That's one of the easiest ways, if it could work in theory, to collect very personalized data in a fairly non-intrusive way, right? You don't have to actually inject something or whatever. And can you use that information to improve, let's say, women's health? And that's I think a very, very novel idea, and a big shout out to this company as a customer and a partner as well. And I think with molecular data and other kinds of biomedical data becoming easier to generate and consume and so on, I think that's a huge opportunity. We should think of ways in which how medicine can be more personalized, and if not more personalized, at least take care of the local variations in physiology, which doesn't happen today.
How do you see the industry sort of changing with the insights that we can get from biomedical data?
I think one of the fundamental changes in the life sciences industry, and again I speak of that because that's what I'm part of, is that there is a much greater reliance on data that has already been generated, right? So if you think about what is the biggest cost of an early stage drug discovery effort, it is to generate data. I think in our world, at least in our worldview, you use the data that you already have, and that makes the process more reliable and hopefully less error prone, because drug discovery is a remarkably error-prone industry. Less than 1% of the products that are actually conceptualized ever make it to the market, right? And that's very, very different from possibly all other industries. There's a 99% almost failure rate.
Wonderful. That's a lovely thought to sort of wrap up today's discussion. Thank you, each one of you, for taking the time out to share your very valuable insights with us. We wish you the very best for your journeys ahead.